The principal leaned into the microphone, looked straight at me in the front row, and said, "Before we hand out diplomas, I want to recognize the family members who made sacrifices. But let's be honest, not every sacrifice is noble. Sometimes people hold on to children that were never theirs to keep." My grandson Dylan's face went white on stage, his cap tilted as he turned to look at me. 300 parents and students went quiet. My hands gripped the metal chair so hard my knuckles ached, because that woman at the podium was not just any principal. She was my grandson's biological mother, the woman who abandoned him when he was 3 years old and somehow climbed her way into power at the very school he attended. And she was not done. She smiled at the crowd and added, "Some of us returned to make things right." I stood up slowly, looked her dead in the eyes, and said loud enough for the whole gymnasium to hear, "You didn't come back to make things right. You came back because you found out what he's worth." Her smile cracked like thin ice, the colour drained from her face, and in that silence, I saw something I had not expected. Fear, real, bone-deep fear, because she knew I had proof. But let me go back to the beginning so you understand how we got here. My name is June. I am 63 years old. I live in a small house in Beaumont, Texas, the same house where I raised my son, Kevin, and later raised his boy, Dylan, after everything fell apart. Kevin was a good kid, gentle, hard-working, the kind of young man who opened doors for strangers and called his mama every Sunday even after he moved out. He became a welder. He married young, a woman named Patricia, who he met at a 4th of July barbecue. She was pretty and charming and laughed like the world owed her a party. I wanted to like her. I tried. But something about the way she watched people always bothered me. She did not look at people with warmth. She looked at them like she was measuring what they could give her. Kevin and Patricia had Dylan when Kevin was 24. For about 2 years, things seemed fine on the surface. But I noticed things. Patricia never held Dylan unless someone was watching. She would hand him to Kevin the second company left. She complained about money constantly, even though Kevin worked overtime every week. Then one morning, Kevin called me. His voice was flat, like a man who had been punched and was too tired to fall down. "Mama, she's gone." She left a note on the kitchen table. "It says she's not coming back." I drove to his apartment and found Dylan in his crib, crying, with a dirty diaper and an empty bottle. The note said 3 sentences. "I can't do this. Don't look for me. Tell Dylan I'm sorry." Kevin fell apart after that. He tried to hold it together for Dylan, but grief and shame are heavy things. He started drinking. Not all at once. It was slow, the way rust eats metal. A beer after work became a 6-pack. A 6-pack became whiskey. One night, when Dylan was 3, Kevin ran a red light and hit a telephone pole. He died before the ambulance arrived. I became Dylan's everything that night. I was 50 years old, working as an office manager at a construction supply company, and suddenly I was raising a toddler again. There was no insurance money. Kevin had let the policy lapse. Patricia was gone. No address, no phone number, nothing. So it was just me and a little boy who kept asking, "Where's Daddy?" I will not say it was easy because it was not. Some nights I sat at the kitchen table after Dylan fell asleep and just stared at the wall because I was too tired to cry. But I made it work. I cut coupons. I packed lunches. I signed up for every assistance program I qualified for. I helped Dylan with homework at the kitchen table, the same table where I used to help Kevin. Dylan grew up kind and smart, just like his father. He played basketball in middle school, got good grades, joined the robotics club in high school. Teachers loved him. He had this way of making people feel comfortable, like the room got a little brighter when he walked in. He called me Grandma June, and every morning before school he would say, "Love you, Grandma." Never missed a day. When Dylan was 15, something changed at his school. A new principal arrived. Her name was Dr. Patricia Aldridge. The school board announced her with great fanfare, a press release, a photo in the local paper. She had a doctorate in education, 10 years of administrative experience in another state, a polished reputation. The first time I saw her photo, my coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. The jawline, the eyes, the way she tilted her chin up like she was posing for a portrait. My stomach turned cold. I told myself I was wrong. Patricia is a common name. People look alike sometimes. But then Dylan came home one afternoon and said, "The new principal pulled me aside today. She asked me about my family. She asked if I lived with my grandmother. I put down the dish I was drying. What did you say? I said yes. She got this weird look on her face and said, that must be hard for you. Like she felt sorry for me. That night I could not sleep. I dug through an old box in the closet and found the one photo I still had of Patricia, taken at Kevin and Patricia's wedding. A young woman in a cheap white dress, smiling like she had already planned her escape. I held that photo next to the newspaper clipping. Same woman, different name, different hair color, but the same sharp eyes that measured people like items on a shelf. My heart pounded so hard I thought I was having an episode, but I forced myself to think clearly. If this was really her, she had abandoned her child, changed her name, built a new identity, and somehow ended up as the principal of her own son's school. That was not a coincidence. That was a plan. I did not tell Dylan. Not yet. He was a teenager with enough on his plate. Instead, I started digging quietly. I went to the county records office and pulled Kevin and Patricia's marriage certificate. Her maiden name was Patricia Loomis. I searched that name online and found nothing useful. Then I searched Patricia Aldridge and found her official biography on the school district's website. It said she grew up in Virginia, earned her degrees in North Carolina, and worked in Georgia before coming to Texas. No mention of a first marriage. No mention of a son. She had erased us completely. But the thing that made my blood go cold was this. Dylan was 17, about to turn 18. And I remembered something Kevin once told me before he died. Kevin's father, my ex-husband Frank, had set up an education trust for Dylan before Frank passed. It was not huge, about $90,000, but it was locked until Dylan turned 18 and enrolled in college. Frank set it up specifically for Dylan, with me as the trustee. Patricia was never on the paperwork because Frank never trusted her. But if Patricia could establish herself as Dylan's biological parent and legal guardian before the trust activated, she might be able to challenge my trusteeship or redirect the funds. I called a lawyer. He confirmed my fear. If the biological mother comes back and petitions for parental rights, even partially, she could make a claim on any financial instrument tied to the child, especially if she argues the grandmother has no legal guardianship. My stomach dropped because I realized something terrible. I had raised Dylan for 15 years on love and instinct, but I had never formally adopted him. I had temporary guardianship papers from when Dylan was 3, signed by a judge after Kevin died, but I never upgraded to permanent legal adoption because I could not afford the lawyer fees, and no one ever told me it mattered. Patricia had vanished. I thought she was gone forever. Now she was back, with a doctorate, a new name, and she was inside Dylan's school every single day. Over the next few months, things started happening. Small things at first. Dylan told me the principal kept calling him to her office for check-ins. She asked about his grades, his plans for college, his relationship with me. She gave him gift cards. She told him he had so much potential and that she wanted to mentor him. Dylan thought it was nice. I thought it was grooming. Then the school sent a letter saying Dylan had been selected for a special scholarship program sponsored by a private education foundation. The letter said a representative would need to meet with Dylan's legal guardian to complete the paperwork. The representative's name was Alan Drake. I had never heard of the foundation. I searched it online and found a bare-bones website that looked like it was made yesterday. I called the phone number listed. A man answered with a smooth voice. Drake, Educational Partners. How can I help you? I asked about the scholarship. He said it was a new initiative for students from single-parent or guardian-led homes. He said they needed documentation, birth certificate, guardianship papers, financial records. I asked who funded the foundation. He paused just a second too long and said, private donors who value education. That pause told me everything. Someone was trying to collect Dylan's paperwork, the exact documents you would need to challenge my guardianship in court. I did not send anything. Instead, I hired a real lawyer this time, a woman named Rosa Garza who specialized in family law. I explained everything. Rosa's face got serious fast. June, you need to file for permanent adoption immediately, and we need to document everything this woman is doing. So we did. Quietly. Behind the scenes, I filed paperwork. Rosa investigated the Drake Educational Partners Foundation and traced it back to a P.O. box registered to someone named Alan Drake, whose address matched an apartment complex 3 blocks from Dr. Patricia Aldridge's listed home address. Rosa found more. Patricia had legally changed her name 6 years ago in Georgia. She had also filed paperwork in Georgia, claiming she had no living children. That was a lie. A lie on a legal document. Meanwhile, Dylan's senior year was moving fast. He had applied to the University of Houston and gotten accepted. He was excited. The first person in our family to go to a real university. His graduation was set for June, and that is when Patricia made her biggest move. 2 weeks before graduation, I received a letter from a family court in Jefferson County. Patricia Aldridge, identified as Patricia Loomis in the filing, was petitioning for parental recognition of Dylan. The filing claimed she had been forced to leave due to domestic circumstances and had spent years rebuilding her life to return to her child. The filing requested shared custody and financial co-guardianship. My hands shook so badly I could barely read the pages. She was trying to take Dylan, not because she loved him, because of the trust, because $90,000 was sitting in an account waiting for Dylan to turn 18 and enroll in college, and she wanted her name on it. I called Rosa. Rosa said, "This is exactly what I was afraid of. We fight this hard, and we fight it now." We prepared our case. I gathered 15 years of evidence, school records, medical records, every teacher conference I attended, every basketball game I drove him to, every birthday cake I baked. Rosa subpoenaed the fake foundation records. She pulled Patricia's name change documents from Georgia. She got the marriage and birth certificates. She built a wall of truth so thick no lie could climb over it. But I still had not told Dylan the full story, and that was eating me alive. One night, a week before graduation, Dylan found me sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere. He sat down across from me and said, "Grandma, what's going on? You've been stressed for months." I looked at my grandson. He had Kevin's eyes, Kevin's gentle voice, Kevin's way of making people feel safe. He deserved the truth. So I told him everything. His mother leaving, his father's accident, how I raised him, how his principal was his biological mother using a different name, how she was trying to take legal control before his trust activated. Dylan did not cry. He just sat very still for a long time. Then he said, "She's been calling me to her office for months. She kept saying she cared about me. She cares about what you're worth," I said quietly. Dylan looked at me and his jaw tightened, just like Kevin's used to. "She doesn't get to take anything from us, Grandma. Not after you gave me everything." Graduation day arrived. The gymnasium was packed. 300 families, balloons, banners, the school band playing off-key. Dylan looked handsome in his cap and gown. I sat in the front row with Rosa beside me, both of us ready for whatever was coming. The ceremony started normally. Students lined up. Names were called. Parents cheered. Then Dr. Patricia Aldridge walked to the podium. She tapped the microphone twice. She smiled that polished smile and began speaking about sacrifice and family and second chances. And then she looked directly at me and said those words. "Not every sacrifice is noble. Sometimes people hold on to children that were never theirs to keep. And then, some of us returned to make things right." The gymnasium went still. Dylan's face was pale on stage. My chest burned. She was trying to rewrite the story in front of everyone. She was trying to paint herself as the hero and me as the woman who stole her child. That was when I stood up. And when I said, "You didn't come back to make things right. You came back because you found out what he's worth." Her mask shattered. She tried to recover. She leaned into the microphone and said with a shaky laugh, "This is not the place for family drama." But her voice was thin now. The audience was murmuring. Parents were looking at each other. A few teachers near the stage shifted uncomfortably. I did not sit down. I kept my voice calm and clear because I had learned a long time ago that quiet truth cuts deeper than loud anger. You abandoned your son when he was 3 years old. You left a note on a kitchen table. You disappeared for 15 years. You changed your name. You lied on legal documents saying you had no children. And now you're standing at his graduation pretending you came back out of love. Gasps rippled through the gymnasium. One woman in the second row covered her mouth. A man near the door whispered, "Oh my God." Patricia's face twisted. "You have no right to say that here." I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. Rosa stood up beside me. "This is a certified copy of your original marriage certificate to my son Kevin. This is Dylan's birth certificate with your name on it. This is your legal name change filing from Georgia, where you swore under oath you had no living children. And this is the court petition you filed 2 weeks ago trying to claim custody of the grandson I raised for 15 years. The gymnasium erupted. People stood up. Teachers looked at each other in shock. The vice principal rushed toward the stage. Patricia grabbed the microphone stand like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "This is a lie," she stammered. "She's confused." Dylan stepped forward on the stage. His voice was steady, stronger than I had ever heard it. "She's not confused. She's my grandmother. She raised me. She packed my lunch every day. She taught me to ride a bike. She sat with me every night when I had nightmares about why my parents were gone. She is my family. You are a stranger who shares my DNA." The room went absolutely silent. Then someone in the back started clapping. Then another person. Then a wave of applause rolled through the gymnasium like thunder. Patricia's eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal. She grabbed her bag and tried to walk off the stage, but she bumped straight into 2 uniformed officers who had entered through the side door. Rosa had tipped them off that morning. The officers were there to serve Patricia with an emergency court order blocking her custody petition and to deliver a summons for filing false statements on legal documents in the state of Georgia. One officer said calmly, "Dr. Aldridge, we need you to come with us." Patricia's voice went shrill. "You can't do this at a graduation. I have rights." The officer replied, "Ma'am, you also have obligations, including the obligation not to lie under oath." They escorted her out through the side door. The gymnasium buzzed like a beehive. The vice principal took over the ceremony, apologized to the families, and finished calling names. When Dylan's name was called, the cheer was the loudest of the night. He walked across that stage with his shoulders back and his chin high. He took his diploma, looked down at me from the stage, and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." I cried. I did not care who saw. After the ceremony, Dylan and I stood outside under the Texas sky, the air warm and thick with summer. He held his diploma in one hand and put his other arm around me. "Grandma, when you stood up in there, I wasn't scared anymore." I squeezed him tight. "Baby." I was terrified. But I learned something a long time ago. Bullies count on you staying quiet. The second you speak, their power disappears. He laughed a little. "You didn't just speak. You brought receipts." I smiled because he was right. In the weeks that followed, the truth unraveled fast. Rosa's case was airtight. The court denied Patricia's custody petition outright. The judge called her filing frivolous and deceptive and noted that she had willingly abandoned her parental rights through 15 years of deliberate absence. The Georgia false statement charge moved forward. Patricia lost her position as principal. The school board conducted an investigation and found she had used her access to student records to identify Dylan and track his family information before she even applied for the job. She had planned this for at least 2 years. Alan Drake, her associate, turned out to be a man she was dating who had helped her set up the fake foundation. He was charged with fraud. Dylan's trust activated on his 18th birthday, just like his grandfather Frank intended. $90,000 went directly into his college fund. No one touched it. No one redirected it. It went exactly where it was supposed to go. Dylan started at the University of Houston that fall. He moved into the dorms with a second-hand laptop and a box of things from home. I helped him carry everything up 3 flights of stairs even though my knees complained the whole way. When we finished setting up his room, he sat on the edge of his narrow bed and looked at me with those Kevin eyes. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." I sat beside him. "What is it? All those years you told me my parents loved me but couldn't stay. You never said one bad word about either of them. Even about her. Even when she came back and tried to hurt us, you only told me the facts. You never made me hate her." I looked at him carefully. "I didn't want hate in your heart. There's no room for it next to everything else." He nodded slowly. "That's why I'm okay. Because you taught me that strength isn't about being angry. It's about being steady." I put my hand on his cheek. The same cheek I used to wipe baby food off of. The same cheek that got scraped when he fell off his bike at age 6. The same cheek that was now the face of a man starting his own life. "You were always going to be okay, Dylan. I just made sure nobody got in the way." He hugged me hard, the kind of hug that says everything words cannot. I drove home to Beaumont that evening. The house was quiet. Dylan's room was empty for the first time in 15 years. I stood in his doorway and looked at the basketball posters, the bookshelf I built from plywood, the desk where he did his homework every night while I cooked dinner 10 feet away. I did not cry. I smiled because that room was proof. Proof that a woman with no money, no husband, no fancy degree, and no plan beyond loving a child can build something no amount of scheming can destroy. Patricia came back with a doctorate, a new identity, lawyers, and a scheme that took her 2 years to build. I beat her with a kitchen table, a box of records, and 15 years of showing up every single day. And that is the lesson I carry in my bones. You do not need power to protect the people you love. You need presence. You need patience. You need the courage to stand up when every part of you wants to sit down and be quiet. Because silence might feel safer, but it has never saved anyone. And the people who try to take from you, the ones who disappear and come back only when there is something to gain, they are counting on your silence. They are betting you will be too scared, too polite, or too tired to fight. Do not give them that bet. Stand up. Speak clearly. Bring your receipts. And never, ever apologize for protecting your family. Dylan called me last week. He is doing well in school. He joined a tutoring program where he helps younger students. He told me, "Grandma, one of the kids I tutor lives with his grandmother too." He was embarrassed about it. I told him my grandmother is the strongest person I know. He smiled after that. I held the phone against my ear and felt my heart fill up so full it almost hurt. Because that is the real victory. Not the courtroom. Not the graduation. Not watching Patricia get escorted out by officers. The real victory is a young man who learned that love is not about where you come from. It is about who stays. And I stayed.